this video we'll see how to create tensors of different dimensions, right? So first we need to import Tensorflow as TF, and then let's print the version of Tensorflow TF dot version. So let's see what version we have. It's a 2.7.0 version we have available. Right now, let's create the tensor, or let's create the scalar first. Scalar means no dimensions, single number. So let's say T1 is equal to TF dot. So we are creating the tensor of constants, right? So that's why constant. That means the elements are immutable, right? I'll pass just one number. Let's say 10, right? So I have now T1, which is a scalar with value 10. So print T1. So this T1 is 10. It has no shape. That means we'll see the meaning of shape in detail later, because there is no element here to understand, right? And data type, by default data type is int32, right? So if I print the dimensions of this T1 dot ndim, so 0, that means it has no dimension, right? So now let's create the tensor of or array of one dimensions. So T2 is equal to TF dot constant, and now in order to create array you need to write these square brackets, right? Square bracket. So this constant is a function. To this function you are passing what you want that function to create. So this constant will create the array of constants, right? Constants means the element of that array will be immutable. You cannot change those, you cannot modify those, right? Okay, so I'll pass two elements now to this 1D array, 1, 2, right? And let's print that. Print T2. You see, so T2 contains this 1, 2 elements. Its shape is 2. That means this one-dimensional array contains two elements. This one-dimensional array contains two elements. That's the meaning of shape. What are those two elements? This one and 2, right? So this one-dimensional array T2 contains two elements, 1 and second is 2, right? So that's the meaning of shape 2, right? Okay, now if I print the dimensions of this T2 dot in dim, it's one dimensional, right? That dimensions are 1. There is no no row, no column sort of thing, right? That's it's only row. Okay, so now let's create the 2D tensor or 2D array. So 2D array contains one-dimensional arrays as elements we saw in the last video, right? So let's create T3, which is again TF dot constant, right? And now to this I'm going to create, and in this I'm going to create these two brackets, right? So this first bracket and second bracket, they are of 2D array, and to this 2D array, the elements of 2D array are one-dimensional array, right? That means this kind of one-dimensional array. So let's put this 1D array as first element. Let's just copy that. I put it here, right? And second element will be second 1D array, right? Let's say 3, 4. So these outer brackets are of 2D array, and this 2D array contains 1D array as element. This is the first element, this is the second element, right? So let's print that. Print T3. Okay, you see this 2D array is printed in the form of a matrix, right? It has two rows, and each row and there are two columns. This is the first column, 1, 3 is the first column, 2, 4 is the second column. And shape of this matrix, or shape of this 2D array is 2, 2. The meaning of this is the 2D array contains two elements. 2D array contains two elements. This is the first element of 2D array, second element of 2D array. And the elements of 2D array are 1D array, right? 1D array. This is the first 1D array. This is the second 1D array. And each 1D array contains two elements itself, right? For example, this one, This 1D array contains 1 and 2. This 1D array contains 3 and 4. That means 2D array contains 2 elements which are one dimensional, and the one dimensional array contains 2 elements, right? So the first element and the second element. Okay. Now if I print the dimensions t3 dot ndim, so 2, right? There are 2 dimensions. Now we can create t3 3-dimensional array. Let's say t4 is equal to tf dot constant. Now, right? So these two brackets will create 3D array, right? So to this 3D array we saw 3D array contains 2-dimensional arrays as elements, right? So that means these kind of element. Let's copy this first 2D array as the first element of this 3-dimensional array, right? So we are creating this outer brackets as 3D, right? And this is the first element of this 3D array, which is a 2D array, right? The element is 2D. Now let's create the second element, right? So the second element is, let's say 4, 5, 6, 5, 6, comma 7, 8, right? Okay, so there are 2 elements in this 3D array, right? This is the first element and second element. Both themselves are 2-dimensional array. Now let's print t4. Print t4. So if I print t4, you get this is a now 3D array. This is now 3D array. It contains 2D array as element. This is the first 2D array element. This is the second 2D array element, right? So let's talk about shape now. The 3D array contains 2 elements, right, which are 2D array. The 2D array contains 2 elements which are 1D array. So this 2D array, the meaning of this is the 2D array contains 2 elements which are 1D array, like this, right? So this one and this one, right? The third element in the shape talks about how many elements are there in 1D array, right? So there are 2 elements, first and second. That's the meaning of shape. Now if I print the dimensions, ndim t3 dot ndim, I'll get 3. Now let's create 4D array, right? 4D array contains 3-dimensional array as element, right? So t5, let's say t5 is equal to tf dot constant. Now to this I'll pass 3D array. We are creating 4D array, that's why 4D array contains 3D array as element like this. So this is the 3D array we created. We'll just copy it, right, as the first element, right? First element. So right, so this is the first element of the 4D array, right? We just copied. Let me first put the bracket here. That bracket of 4D array we did not do. Let me not have the confusion here. I'll remove it. I'll do it one more time, right? So this is what we want to create, the 4D array, right? So these two brackets will create, these two brackets are for 4D. Now in this 4D I'll put 3D as element, right? So this 3D which we copied from here, I'll put it here, right? So the 3D which we copied from here, right? So this 3D I put as element of the 4D. So outer is 4D, right? Now you can have one more 3D element here. So I'll just give a comma and put the second 4D array as element, right? So control, again I'll copy the same just to avoid the typing, right? So this 4-dimensional array, outer 4-dimensional array, contains 2 elements which are 3-dimensional. This is the first 3-dimensional element and this is the second 3-dimensional element, right? Now let's print that. Let's see what we get. Print t5. You see, we got, this is a 4D array now, 4D array containing 2 elements. This is the first element of the 4D array. This is the second element of the 4D array, and the elements themselves are 3D array, right? So let's talk about shape now. The shape of the 4D array is 2. That means 4D array contains 2 elements, and the elements of 4D array are 3D array. And those 3D array contains 2 elements, right? So how many elements? This 3D array contains 2 elements, right? What are those? This is the first one, and this is the second one, right? So this 3D array contains two elements which are 2D array, right? 2D array. So how many elements 2D array contains? 2D array contains two elements. What are those? This one and this one, right? So 2D array contains two elements, right? What are they are one dimensional array. Elements of 2D array are one dimensional array. And how many elements are there in one dimensional array? Two again, right? So this one and this one, right? So 4D array contains two elements which are 3D array. 3D array contains two elements which are 2D array. 2D array contains two elements which are 1D array. 1D array contains two elements which are scalars, right? So now if you print the shape dimensions here, t5.ndim, right? There are four dimensions, right? Four dimensions. Similarly, you can create five-dimensional. Just let me create last five-dimensional array. So t6 is equal to tf dot constant, right? So these two brackets will create a five-dimensional, right? So five-dimensional array contains four-dimensional array as an element. So just copy the four-dimensional array which we had here. So this is our four-dimensional array. I'll copy there. Right? I'll just copy it here, right? So now we have a 5D array containing only one element, right? Let's say there is only one element in the 5D array, right? And now we'll print that. Print T6. You see, this is a 5D array, right? So 5D array contains only one element, which is 4D array. 4D array contains two elements, which are 3D array. 3D array contains two elements, which are 2D array. 2D array contains two elements, which are 1D array, and 1D array contains two elements, which are scalars. So if you type the t6.ndim, you will get 5. You will get 5, right? So the bottom line is a n-dimensional array contains n minus 1 dimensional array as sub-element. N minus 1 dimensional array contains n minus 2 dimensional array as sub-elements. So likewise, right? So these all multi-dimensional arrays, they are called as tensors, right? And these dimensions are also called as rank of the tensor, right? Okay, so we created tensor of constants. We'll see how to create tensor of variable element. That means the elements of the tensor. Now the constant means we cannot modify these elements. You cannot modify these elements. Let's see, that means if I want to change this 1 to some other value, I cannot do that because it's a constant tensor. We'll see how can we have a tensor of variable. That means I can modify the value or contents in the tensors in the next video.